What terrifying event is happening in the world right now that most people are ignoring? Insect numbers are absolutely plummeting. There is about a 2.5% loss in terms of mass per year. Without insects, the food chain will collapse. The effects of this are already starting to be seen. Here in the UK, water companies have been dumping tons and tons of sewage into our river systems and into the sea, making some beaches close. It is truly disgusting, and the whole water industry eyes in about £60 billion of debt and could collapse. The birds are disappearing. Most likely because the bugs are, too. The seals dying of avian flu in Chile. You know, it started to go downhill a little after we demoted Pluto. Well, good morning to you all too. What a depressing way to start the day. I am terrified. My country is on fire. It was also on fire a month ago, but then it stopped for a few weeks. This post makes me realize we're really upped. Ocean currents slowing. Cats dying of bird flu in Poland, mammal-to-mammal transmission confirmed. Sweet baby Jesus, I should not have read this thread. Evidently the bees are dying out, and once they die are all ucked. Not a bee expert. Maybe someone who can explain further. Edit. Article explaining why honeybees aren't in danger, but other bees are. Also, I originally did look down the comments, but missed one of the top comments about insects, in general. Thanks for the replies and good information. Hope that helps. Heat waves in India killing possibly thousands of people. It's not in the media anywhere, and ice probably also going on in other countries such as Mexico and southern USA. Civil war and possible genocide going on in Sudan right now. No one cares. Not even with the potentially thousands or maybe even millions of refugees this creates. Possible human health catastrophes incoming with all the poisonous and cancerous chemicals coming from microplastic, pesticides and so many other beauty products we use daily, which scientists have been warning us about for decades. No one is interviewing these scientists anymore, writing about the problem anywhere, or even trying to find out what kind of actually health hazards will evolve from our careless use with all these chemicals constantly. Depression has become an epidemic disease. The massive destruction of our coral reefs. The rise of surveillance capitalism and AI. Privacy is essentially non-existent anymore, and it feels like absolutely no one cares. And #X200B. Edit. Wow. I did not expect this to get any attention at all. It's really nice to know that there are at least some people out there that also have some interest in this. Cheers. What's an addiction that people often overlook? Junk food. Sugar. Soda. I am addicted to these things and wish I can break that habit. When my depression is bad, I'd say sleep. It's a free, safe way to escape, but it ultimately feeds the depression, becoming a bad cycle. It doesn't sound that bad, but it's consuming. Edit. Some people are confused, so I'll clarify. It's not because of lack of rest. It's not the sleep itself, it's the dreaming, aka escape. A different reality that feels very real and isn't this one. Maybe I'm just not explaining it right, but yeah. Shopping. Work addiction. Most people will say they dislike working extra, but the responsibility you feel towards your coworkers and the purpose work gives your life can make you work more than you should. Source. Addicted to work. News addiction. Outrage is an addiction. Some people seek it out, actively searching for a reason to hate their neighbors just so they can get their hit of dopamine. It feeds news addiction, tribalism, and eventually extremism. It's the source of so much violence, so many divided houses and ruined lives, but we do nothing to curb it. Social media addiction. Self-isolating due to social anxiety. It's not an addiction, I know, but it gets me high knowing how lonely I am, and there is nothing I can do about it. I am not overweight or unattractive, but I love beating myself up about how socially inept I am. I am addicted to feeling sorry about myself. Even though I am relatively good looking and in shape. UCK. Phone addiction. No explanation needed. Caffeine. Porn addictions. Doesn't seem blatantly harmful, but over the long term it can really affect you negatively. Edit. I didn't think this would blow up like it did, but I'm glad that so many of you recognize the damage porn does, and I'm super happy to see so many people conquer their addiction. Guys, what do women do that give you the ick? Silent treatment. I've hated it for the longest time, when you do something wrong and you try to apologize and they say nothing is even worse, just hurtful. Confusing confidence with being inconsiderate. The ucking testing. I appreciate that you have been in previous relationships where someone lied and or cheated on you, but don't spend your entire single life trying to catch me in some lie so you can have your self-fulfilling prophecy that all men are liars. Lie. Do something hurtful, then play victim so you end up comforting them for what they did even though you want to cry lol. lie about how they feel, loudly empathizing with every cause and group on the planet but treating people in their personal lives like trash. I think not taking accountability is the biggest stone. You've messed up, were rude, incorrect, whatever, but just doubling down and never apologizing or admitting fault is so unattractive. Just own it and apologize like a grown-up. I'm sorry but, etc. Cleaning my wife's hair out of the drains grosses me out to the point where I gag. IDKY. I had no problem with other gross things. I can even clean up my dog's vomit with little to no gagging. Not a guy, but a lesbian. And it's acting dumb for the sake of being cute. It's not cute. It's annoying. Shut up. One for when you're in a relationship, when you're with friends and they become distinctly less pleasant to you than when you're alone, like making fun of you and making jokes at your expense which they normally would not make. Have had it in more than one relationship, like, what is that about? I saw a cute girl on a treadmill at the gym sneeze 4 times and not attempt to cover her mouth once. Absolutely disgusted me. Casual hate. Just chill, why are you so upset about everything? Hilariously fake eyelashes. Baby voice. One time an ex screamed at her 2-year-old nephew. Instantly unattractive. Always talk about themselves and never ask you anything at all, so the entire thing just revolves around her. Not even like how was your day or are you okay, just always about them and the attention. Most of them got cooties. Except my mom. Mentioning their ex constantly. Denigrating and emasculating men who show emotions. It's honestly one of the most fucked up things anyone can do to another person. Also, using a man's kids as pawns in disputes, like cutting off visitation because you're mad at him. Don't fucking do that. It's just cruel to the kids. Ex-workers of Reddit. Who was the grossest customer you've had? I had a client hit himself while I was blowing him, then got mad when I stopped blowing him. According to him, all men hit themselves while feeling extreme pleasure. Edit. You need to stop asking me if that's the professor. Definitely not, he was not old. And I'm based in Canada on a tiny little island. I'm not an ex-worker, but I did run a bar opposite one of Edinburgh's infamous saunas, sort of legal brothel the police turned a blind eye to. Anyway, girls used to come into my bar once their shift was over for a well-earned drink, and so I got talk now some of them pretty well. Inevitably, conversation would turn to their clients' kinks. 2. Spring to mind. The high court judge who came in to be spanked and BE told he needed to be punished. Not that exciting, but the one I can never forget was the peanut butter man. He would come in the day before with a massive bag of peanuts for his favorite girl and book an appointment the next day where the girl would hit on him and he would smear it all over himself saying, "I'm the peanut butterman," over and over. I could never get that image out of my mind. I was a ex-worker escort for 2 years. I was hired by a 73-ish-year-old professor, nice-sized public university. He hired me to go to his office and give him low jobs. Yes, it was on campus grounds. Anyway, I'm giving him head and I smelled something foul. I wanted to stop, and as soon as I was about to, I see a lump of hit lodged in between his SS cheeks. I didn't want to embarrass him but told him that I was ready to go. I never agreed to see him again. A coworker's mother came in and paid another coworker to spank her. But the mom said she wanted to be able to hear it. I gave a lap dance to what I thought was a couple. They were brother and sister. My friend used to do this on the side cause extra cash, but she stopped when she had a guy pay her to peg him, and then as she was doing it, he hit himself and didn't want her to stop. He told her that it felt better with that kind of lube. She said she had to stop and gather herself and proceeded cause he was paying her $1,000 for the hour. But as she began again, that's when he began to jerk off and all over the bed underneath him. She said that room smelled so bad afterwards. She said she was washing up and getting ready to leave. He was just laying on his and hit stained bed. Like she said, he's literally laying on his hidden and naked and pleased with himself. She says he wanted her to do it again as he was laying there, but this time he wanted to be on his back while they did it. She says I politely declined and told him I had to get to another appointment. I had a client who scraped the crotch of my panties with a knife, then put the scrapings in his pipe and smoked it. I eat Oreos before I got to the dentist because I think the dental assistant is hot and I want her to spend more time with me. Before I went independent, I worked for a service. They sent me out on a call, and when I got to the apartment I had to be buzzed in. I opened the door and it's large loft-style apartment and there are piles of trash everywhere. I'm standing in the doorway thinking oh hit, and I hear a voice from up in the loft telling me to come around and up the stairs. So I do, Doing my best to avoid touching anything, and I climb the stairs, and the entire loft area is a king-size bed, trash all around the bed and a massive obese man laying in the bed. Fortunately, it was incredibly quick. But I told the service I never wanted to go back. I'm a webcam model, and the amount of grown SS men fantasizing about their underage nieces, neighbors or sisters is disturbing. I always block them. I'd rather be poor than engage in their disturbing fantasies. I was a phone ex-worker. The amount of men who wanted me to be a cold dead girl was a bit disturbing. This blew up after I went to beta. Few people have asked how I managed to do a dead girl over the phone. Basically, I described the state of my corpse and they detailed how they wanted to abuse me. In answer to another frequent question, I'm not sure phone ex work exists anymore, as I did this in the early 2000s before FaceTime and OnlyFans existed. Why did I learn English? Person facepalming, light skin tone. I did bottle service at a strip club for a while. This is a story from a bar back I was friends with. He was working at another club prior and was friends with a stripper who had some wealthy regular customer that would pay her to pee in a glass and he would drink it. She couldn't pee that night, so asked the bar back to pee in the cup for her. He did, and the customer sat and drank it. My brother once was the maintenance guy in Aberfell in Switzerland. One morning a guy came in and asked if the used condoms from the night before were still available. He wanted to buy, open and eat them. Every time I think about that story it makes my mind crawl. Exotic dancer here. I watched a girl get on stage with a bottle of Heineken and put it into Herregina, then do a handstand effectively drinking it. She then stood back up and the beer went back into the bottle and someone paid her to drink it. FYI, I checked out at Peanut Butter Man. I have a friend who was a pro dome in a dungeon in NYC for a few years, and she had a regular client who was an FBI agent. He was into mummification and would come in once a month to be bound in a body bag for 48 hours at a time. Actual escort here. I've been doing it on and off for the past decade, starting at 20. I'm 31 now, and have never had a client with poor hygiene. I have always charged $600 per hour. The grossest client I have ever had. Well, it wasn't by any fault of his own. He was so massive lion attractive, and he had these huge moles all over his face. Also, he was clearly very insecure, and it seemed like he was prepared for me to reject him. I still feel awful about this encounter, even though it happened maybe 8 years ago. He seemed direct as far as what he wanted. He asked me to give him a massage, and so I massaged him for several minutes, and then he said, "This isn't working out." Loudly crying, he paid me in full, but I felt awful about it. There are entirely too many oop and pedophilia stories in these comments. Nauseated face. This was on a date, but I had this guy, my friends and my therapist call him Oop Ryan. So you know where this is going. He and I got intimate one night and he begged me to pee on him. At this point, I was decently intoxicated and figured, it's his apartment and I never have to see him again. Why the UCK not? So I agree. Well, he laid down on his floor and I stood over him. He said, no. Up here. And pointed to his face. So, I was like, okay. I can pee on his face if he wants, and I move. Well, he opens his mouth and I step away and go, whoa no. I'm not doing that. He begged me to pee into his mouth so he could drink it. So, I figured. C'est la vie, right? I squat over him and start to pee into his mouth. And he's drinking away. At one point he tells me to stop. So I do, and I'm holding it, and he gets up and leaves. He comes back with a glass from the kitchen. He asked me to pee into the glass so he could enjoy it later. So, I iced in the glass and watched him drink my urine from a pint glass. It was at this point I was very sober and decided, well, that's enough dating for this century, and got ready to go when he begged me to. Take a height in his chest and then UCK him without him CLEANINGIT off. So I got in my car, watched him run out after me, drove away, blocked his number, and never looked back. I wasn't an ex-worker, but, as a taxi driver, I had many regulars amongst the ex-trade. They all had the same character. They point-blank refused to entertain. He didn't believe in washing, either himself or his clothes. Reckoned it weakened a person. I was lucky enough to only have met him in the open air, but my nose was still traumatized. He was really miffed because none of the ladies would entertain him, and then I refused to take him in the car. Lol, no amount of money would have been worth that. Not gross, but I did have a guy that wanted to cut off my leg. This thread is making me second-guess my no kink-shaming stance. Some people should definitely be shamed. One of my roommates was an escort. Tall, blonde, tattooed, gorgeous. She talked about needing to establish a lot of boundaries right away, list of don'ts. She talked about not kissing on the mouth or cuddling. She said it costs $1,000 and most men only last 15 minutes. She had a goal to save up and finish this career at 30, then transition to something else. She did a lot of stripping that started as dancing but eventually moved into X. She said every bachelor party she's ever done, the husband has cheated on his wife. She seemed quite hardened and kept saying, "Men are all the same." From the outside it seemed like a scary job. Lots of encounters, lots of unknowns.